I wanted to know what DHS's policy was on this matter, so I looked it up on their website. And this is what it said. It says policy on the use of force. Under Article 2, Part C, it says that the Supreme Court has ruled that all claims that law enforcement officers have used excessive force, deadly or not, in the course of an arrest, investigatory stop, or other seizure of a free citizen should be analyzed under the Fourth Amendment and its reasonableness standard. This standard is an objective one that, in the context of use of force policy and practice, is often referred to as objective reasonableness. Part 2 of that says that because the standard is not capable of precise definition or mechanical application, its proper application requires careful attention to the facts and circumstances of each particular case. The reasonableness of a law enforcement officer's use of force must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene, rather than with the 20/20 vision of hindsight. In determining whether the force a law enforcement officer used to effect a seizure was reasonable, courts allow for the fact that law enforcement officers are often forced to make split-second judgments in circumstances that are tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving. A reasonable officer is one who is not in a state of emotional agitation or affected by some past experience that would put them in a different state of mind than the average officer on the scene. And that would involve like being in a shooting in the past or being dragged by a vehicle. A person who has had that kind of traumatic experience is going to react differently than someone who hasn't, and might not follow their training or the policies. Article 3, under general principles, talks about respect for human life, and it specifically mentions de-escalation. There's a whole section on it that ultimately says that a officer's job is to de-escalate situations. We've all seen the videos that are all over YouTube of ICE officers and Border Patrol agents absolutely escalating situations. When you put your hand on your weapon during a tense situation, that is an escalation. When you tell a person, get the fuck out of your vehicle, that is an escalation. When you approach someone who is not directly threatening you, that is an escalation. When you threaten a person, that is an escalation. If somebody is recording you with a device and you tell them, I'm going to arrest you if you don't stop doing that, not only is that an escalation, it's also illegal. They have the right to record you. They are not interfering in what you're doing. So we've seen that, and we know that that's happening. What is the state that is created when you do things like that? Well, you agitate everybody around you. So let's say that there's a bunch of protesters on the street, and they're standing on the sidewalk and they're yelling things at ICE. They're certainly escalating things too. They aren't trained. They're just regular civilians. They don't have the same responsibility, professional responsibility, to de-escalate that is literally written into the policy of every law enforcement agency. If they are arresting a person and you are standing 5 feet away from them, you are not trying to touch them, you are not trying to get in between them and the person that they are arresting, that is not interference. You are standing on the sidewalk, maybe you're yelling at them. It's not nice to yell obscenities at somebody, but it is certainly not interfering. The next part talks about use of safe tactics. It says that DHS law enforcement officers should seek to employ tactics and techniques that effectively bring an incident under control while promoting the safety of the law enforcement officers and the public, and that minimize the risk of unintended injury or serious property damage. They should avoid intentionally and unreasonably placing themselves in positions in which they have no alternative but to use deadly force. This is a really, really important line. And it directly applies to this situation in Minnesota. Standing in front of a vehicle is putting yourself in a position of risk. It is not a position that you need to ever be in. You can stand to the side of the vehicle. You can stand anywhere where the vehicle can't move. We can see in the video, the multiple videos that were shown online, including the one where the officer was recording with his cell phone, that he was definitely standing in front of the vehicle.
At the beginning of the video, we see an ICE agent get out of the passenger side of a truck and another agent get out of the driver's side of the truck. The first ICE agent comes up to the window of the minivan. The minivan begins to back up to the left and then turns to the right. We start to see Agent Ross in the front left of the car. He fires into the window of the minivan as it turns to the right away from him and then crashes into some other cars on the other side of the road. In the second video, you see the officer get out of his truck. He approaches the minivan. On the passenger side, you see the driver through the window. He moves around immediately in front of the minivan. He's now standing directly in front of it. He comes around onto the driver's side of the car, where Renee Good tells him he's okay. He goes around to the back of the minivan. He shoots video of her license plate. Renee's wife then walks up, starts talking to him. He continues to walk around the vehicle. He's now on the passenger side again. Continues walking. Encounters the wife again. He's still on the passenger side of the vehicle. Then, for some reason, he walks around the front of the vehicle yet again. It now backs up. Then it pulls forward. His camera seems to shake as if he was bumped. And we hear the words, bitch.
If I had been run over by a vehicle in the past, or I had been dragged by a vehicle, I would not step in front of a vehicle. I would not put myself in a position of risk. It is one that I created myself. Some might argue that he put himself in that position because he was trying to escalate the situation. We don't know that. I'm not claiming that. But it could happen. If you felt like you were treated unjustly in the past, you might be more likely to feel like you wanted to take that out on somebody in the future. But it is a question that deserves to be answered. Why would a person who knows of that risk and has personally experienced that the consequences of that risk put themselves in that position? Why would he step around in front of the vehicle? The other agent is on the side of the vehicle. He approached the car door. You can see Jonathan Ross walk around the front of the car. Just something to think about.